I'm happy about this panel discussion is, yes, does impact matter? Does it matter that someone would like to influence the lives of 1 billion people and do greater good? I believe so. But what I also like is that this panel will kind of demystify and will also kind of take it down to earth and say, but how do we measure this social impact? So the whole let's go and save Africa turns into actual impact. Please welcome our panelists on stage.
How would you like us to sit?
Okay. Should we? Excellent. All right. Welcome, everyone. Fantastic to be talking social impact today. And very happy to have this conversation on the main stage here at TechBBQ. I think instead of being in a small room, that would have been the case maybe a few years back, this is really on the agenda now, driving social impact. And I would like to run through the panel here of these great experts in the field. So why don't we start over there?
Perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Malte. I lead social impact for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Google out of our Hamburg bureau in Germany.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ulrika Hasselgren. I work for Danske Bank Wealth Management in Lyngby, outside of Copenhagen. And I head up our sustainable and impact investing unit within our asset management function.
Cool. And I can take my 60 seconds.
Okay.
Hello everyone. I always like to start with a small exercise that requires to leave your phone and laptop for a second behind and make eye contact with me. Please, very fast, I have just 60 seconds. You make eye contact and you close your eyes and you think of the most important thing that you would take with you if you would have to leave your home forever. You create the image in your head, you open your eyes again, and you raise your hand if you have sort of your high school diploma. Okay, nobody? When my grandfather was in this situation, he took also a warm jacket when he comes as a refugee to Germany 60 years ago. So my topic is how to bring refugees into higher education. I'm the founder and was previously CEO of Kiron, which is a platform that enables refugees to enter higher education by using digital solutions. I'm happy to talk about my experience today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks. Thank you, guys. And last and probably least in this panel is myself, Oscar Westergaard. And I am partner at the startup generator Antler, but have previously co-founded a company called Bima, which is a mobile microinsurance company currently operating in 15 countries in the emerging markets, distributing insurance to the lower segments of the society. And what I would like to talk about is regarding impact today, and that it has been growing as an interest from investors, but also with relating to, is it a buzzword? And what is behind it? I would like to just go around the panel here with relating, is impact, social impact a buzzword, or is it a long-term alternative for companies to grow within? So maybe Ulrika.
Yeah, I think it's, on the one hand, it's definitely a buzzword. It's been a buzzword for quite some time, and I think that it's a buzzword that is highly popular, and it sits well with, in my area of focus for my work. I work with institutional investors across a range of investment strategies, and impact has really sort of slided in or into this industry. It's a buzzword, and it's not clear what it really means, and that's a challenge, but we can get to the challenges later.
Yeah, so maybe you want to add on, what is social impact to you?
Well, social impact to me, in my work, that means that you invest with an intention. So it starts from an intention to do good, to provide a social solution through your investments and or your allocations. I think it's interesting because I think many of us will be familiar and know that the term impact investment was sort of coined by Rockefeller Foundation many years ago, and then it was clear what the intention was, and the social or environmental return was first, and then financial return. Now, a few years back, we had BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, launching their impact strategy, and quite a few in the market said, "Oops, now what does impact really mean?" So I think that gives us a fairly big, large span, to define what it is.
Thank you. And Malte, at Google, how do you find social impact, and what does it mean to you?
I think this is a good point, that it's two things: how you as a corporation or company define it versus how you as a person define it. And actually, like, when I talk about social impact or having an impact, I generally think back to my university life, where we had a student consultancy, like I think many universities in the world have, where you have a couple of students who try their best being a little consultant for sometimes very big corporations. And the team that we had, we felt that as a student at our university, it was such a privilege to kind of enjoy that education, that we determined that the only companies, organizations that we help are the ones that don't make any money. So charities, the Red Cross, and so on and so forth. And I think that really has set the stage for myself to define what having an impact in the world means. It's not necessarily that I'm a doctor and I couldn't be, but I can help those people who save lives.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And Vincent, would you like to fill in on that? What is social impact to you, being the entrepreneur here on the panel?
I like the notion Malte introduced of differentiating between the personal impact and the organizational impact. So on the personal level, I would say impact for me is the match between my own unique abilities and the impact I can have on the world. So if I'm a doctor, my biggest impact is by helping people get healthier. Even if I could also, I don't know, give away food or provide shelter to people. But this is not the unique thing I could provide. And on the organization level, with respect to my German roots, I would always say more output than input. Very easy. Not easy to calculate, not easy to measure, but certainly if the value you create is bigger than what you use to resources for it, that's certainly a quite easy formula for me to estimate.
Okay, great. So then moving on from the definition of social impact here and talking about what's happening in terms of trends. And I would like to go to Malte there at Google. I mean, you guys have data on everything. What are the trends in social impact? Are there any particular sort of verticals in terms of environmental or in society, or where do you see the trends going right now?
I think there are a couple of trends, some that are just because how the world works right now. I mean, the refugee crisis, especially as a German citizen, we were exposed to that and saw the impacts in Germany in 2016. And there are many other things around in the world that may have a larger impact or a more subtle impact, like misinformation, these kind of things. But there's then also this interesting component of where technology starts to establish that we may not have had 5 years or 10 years ago, where there's a completely new way to deal with a crisis. So the kind of right crisis and the right technology may actually bring up a whole new, within our team, a whole new, I don't know, team or set of engineers who start to think about something that hasn't been before the way that it, could be.
Any particular industry or
I think we shouldn't be attached to specific industries. Like, I think there's so many technologies across industries that always have this humanitarian angle. So if you, I don't know, take blockchain, of course it is associated with the rather financial industry, when really you can do so many other things like, I don't know, smart contracts that would allow the Red Cross to exactly bring full transparency to any single donation. So if you donate, blockchain would actually enable you to exactly see if that specific refugee got that donation and to what extent and how much is that and those kind of things. So I think it is a cross-industry thing, really, where you have to have this humanitarian mindset or angle on it.
Fantastic. And Ulrika, from an investor point of view at Danske Bank, how do you see trends emerging in the social impact space? Or where are you putting your money right now?
I think there's a very clear trend that investors are trying to find ways to use the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, in relation to their investment. So to align your investments with the SDGs, some, one, or all, and really from there trying to connect your investment with the goals. And the challenge, of course, that on the one hand, this is a very positive movement because the SDG as a framework is, I mean, you almost feel like it's tangible. All of a sudden, the world is getting so close to you, and we all want to support poverty alleviation, clean water, access to medicine, housing, education, and so the SDG then forms this good framework. The challenge, again, how do you measure?
Yeah.
And there's a tendency among investors in general that you actually focus on the output, but you miss out on the outcome.
Yeah.
So, and we can continue.
Yeah, and I think it's leading on to sort of the measurability there, which is obviously the going back and forth, and you end up in how do you measure social impact? And Vincent, you have founded two companies, Chiron and Ada Health, right? Been part of setting up.
Currently also in Ada Health, but I would like, because I don't have that much time, maybe focus on Chiron. And because we were so close with universities, for us it was quite easy to come up with a very advanced network of evaluation and impact measurement. So we very clearly defined from input, output, outcome, impact. And we run long evaluations. We have a 7-year on long-term evaluation going on. And then we realized everyone talks about impact measurement, but if I then provide them the numbers and want to get into the depth of it, people are not so much interested anymore. So they want to tick the box. Yeah, they do impact measurement, but they're actually not so much interested in the evaluation part. So we moved away from evaluating what I call impact governance. So I would like be interested in my own organization. Where do I put the next year? Do I invest in mentor program or a buddy program? Do I, get more students into the program, or do I increase the sign-up rates within the program, for example? And the 4 trends, coming back to the original question also, that I see is certainly technology. Malte touched up on that. Certainly social entrepreneurship in a way of moving away from philanthropy and donations towards own sustainable business models, and also accessing capital, let's say, as moving much more resources into the sector. But I think even more important is the shift towards culture and new work, where I have now the ability to attract talent to a social organization in Germany that works in Taiwan. For example, I have a small team of professors in Taiwan supporting our program. I met them once in person, and since 2 years they, contributing to our mission. And this wouldn't be possible without that. It's just all interacting and reinforcing itself. And I think this shift is amazing because it enables us to tackle problems rather than just handling the emergency. So I always make this example. Since 1945, we're tracking the numbers of refugees. They go up every year. So the refugee crisis is actually not a new crisis, it's an ongoing development. And since the 70s, we know that less than 1% of them having access to university. That means we actually could rather build 10 universities every new week. And you clearly see that this is not adding up. So technology is the only way of tackling that problem, but we have a fair chance of actually solving it. So we're moving away from handling a crisis to actually solving problems and then move on and actually building up on something. And I think this is very exciting.
Okay, excellent. So I want to stay on the measurability point there for a while, and Ulrika, from your point of view, can we expect the same financial returns on social impact businesses as we do with regular businesses, or in terms of?
Can we expect the same financial returns?
Yeah. or is it?
Do we want
Do
the
we
same
want or-
financial
yeah.
returns? I think that's something that investors ask themselves, and for depending on who you are as an investor,
Yeah.
You are able to allocate your assets, your investments based on a purpose and an intention,
Yeah.
and then you know it is a long-term investment.
Yeah.
So I think time and time horizon is a key to answer that question. And for some investors, they will say that yes, there's a possibility for us to over time achieve the financial returns that we have set as targets, whereas others will say that no, it's not enough time. So this is, but it's also in the definition
Yeah.
of what is it that we actually achieve.
Short term, long term as well.
Short term, long term is crucial. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I see we have some questions popping up here on the screen. So, one person asking about the SDG goal that will have the biggest social impact in the nearest future. Let's take a round of that here on the panel. Please, Vincent.
I certainly would argue that this is education. Because speaking of return of investment, like I think all studies show roughly between 8 or 12% on annual return if you invest in the education of a person. And just thinking about it, for example, getting higher education, it's an investment of 3 or 5 years that then pays off over a lifetime for a person. And if you take a lifetime value of a bachelor degree, for example, in Jordania, it's around $350,000 per person. A program costs between 3 or 15,000 euros. So you can clearly say that the dividend is quite large. And with all other programs, you have always the problem of collective system adapting itself. So if you have corruption or you have a health problem, you maybe have a problem, trying to repair some small part of the system. But if the overall system is broken, it always snaps back. And if you invest in individual persons, it doesn't matter if the person stays in Syria or in Jordan, if it moves on. If you invest in the education of the person, that investment is never lost, right? So I would certainly argue that education is, of course, the biggest
Education.
engine for me. Yeah.
Great. Malte, what do you think?
I'm still struggling in my head to get them all together. I would second, though, that education is probably solving all known problems, because it can lead to tech, it can lead to more diversity, to inclusion, to basically everything that we face right now as massive challenges in the world.
Yeah. Okay. So education. What do you think?
Okay, very important with education, but I cannot say that. I mean, if I am to pick one area, it's climate change, because that will impact if we are here, next generations or not, to be educated. I think that climate change is the crucial matter for the planet. It affects every part of society. It affects every human, nations, people, and I think that if we are not, as a world, dealing and solving these huge channels, we will not be here. And it's interesting, actually. I'm Swedish, by the way, and of course, as a Swedish person, this summer, honestly, I was so happy with all the sunshine. In Sweden, you kind of long for that few weeks of sunshine, and we had lots of it. It was also, I live in southern part of Sweden, it was all yellow. There was no green. Our farmers were suffering. They had to get rid of their livestock. It was such challenges. And I'm thinking, wow, climate change is not and now, when the rain has come back, it's all green. Very quickly, the planet adjusted. But if this goes on, it's an issue for humanity. We will not survive. The planet will make it. It's not an issue for the planet, but it's an issue for humankind. So.
Okay.
I would maybe add to it that the SDGs were not designed to be played against each other.
No.
They were designed as a holistic set of targets we should aim for.
Yeah. Great. No, I fully agree. I to your point there, I mean, I'm also Swedish, and we had a lot of forest fires up from the area where I'm from, and it's really puts perspective on things where we're heading. But obviously, social impact and the changes we see around us creates immense opportunities as well. I mean, not only do we need to solve issues, but we should see them as potential areas for innovation, for using technology, educating people to take this opportunity, right? So I want to throw the question out here. What are the most sort of exciting companies you see today that are building their business or their format around social impact? If you can mention any.
I could maybe start because we had a discussion with Malte earlier, because what I feel people underestimate is how much it matters that we have brought down the cost of starting something like the bureaucratic backbone of organizations. And I always say we started off with we were 2 students, we had no capital, and we built up an organization of 100 people, and we built it on the free tools available mainly by Google, like Google Drive, like Gmail. Our whole communication with the students is based on that. And one of our students graduated and took the same tools, went to Tunisia and built an own startup there and venture that is now educating children in Tunisia. And I think that we have this technology freely available and usable, and there are different models. So some put it behind a paywall, and others like Google put it freely out there. Of course, they have their business model as well. But I feel this is having an impact beyond certain local ecosystems. So I wouldn't name out maybe one of the social startups that are there. Are many out there. Juzor, just to name an example from Syria. But I really feel on the big scale, I think this was really pushing a lot of people forward.
Okay, great.
I think what is interesting with every crisis that mankind faces, there's actually one very good thing. It brings people together like nothing else. There's this sense of community, this sense of we need to help each other regardless of race or ethnicity or any kind of background. And this is where I believe technology can really be an enabler, because suddenly you have so many stakeholders in any crisis, whether this was during the Swedish wildfires, where maybe one authority didn't know what the other authority does, and I think Sweden at some point asked for help from the international community. And you have so many stakeholders in there, and everybody wants to help, but sometimes the tools to actually get people together are missing. And whether this is Google tools or Slack or whatever it is, but I think technology can really be a good enabler and never be this kind of magic bullet that will an app won't solve the wildfire, but an app can actually help to get communication set up between people.
Great. Ulrika, do you have a comment there on a company or an area which you see the biggest potential? Or?
I think I don't have a particular company. In my work, I deal mainly with the larger companies and the listed companies. But looking at some of the smaller listed companies, where we are able to assess the sustainability of their business model and how their products and services actually serve a purpose to deal with the sustainability challenges, I think those are crucial companies across sectors. What is so important is, of course, scale. The scale of the matter throughout the different sectors.
Great. Excellent. So I think some fantastic thoughts here. Let's see if we have any burning questions here on the screen. Let's talk a little bit about the area of some last comments on greenwashing. I think there was a comment there earlier. If you want to, Malte, what is it and how can we avoid it?
I think it leads also to another question on, like, as a big corporation, how do you do social impact if you have, obviously, if you are a public listed company? I think one of the reasons why I like to work at Google is that our founders in our founders letter said, I think we are not a conventional company. We do not intend to become one. And so a lot of the things are done in a slightly separate way, telling shareholders that we might do things differently than they expect. And internally, we have this goal that 1% of profits go into charitable organizations at any given point in time. That is a very specific goal that needs to be set out there. And beyond that, I think you really, as a founder, as a CEO, as like the entire leadership, needs to encourage this individual behavior where people just do stuff that they might be doing in their spare time. I think in Denmark, 43% of the people do actually voluntary work. If you don't just do that during your weekend, but maybe like half day at your job with the tools that you have, or the tech, or whatever it is, because we are at a tech event, that is, I think, something that every company can do without sacrificing any profits or any revenue.
Great. So let's round off on a positive note and some inspiration. Vincent, do you have a good book on the topic of social impact, or a good book that you've been sort of moved by, that you want to recommend to the amazing audience here?
Maybe two. One very practical is called, I think, Never Split the Difference, where I feel like, especially in the social impact field, people tend to negotiate not that hard because they have that good cause behind it. And I feel like if it's our responsibility to get as much out of a negotiation for the people I want to serve, I feel this book helped me a lot. And the second one I mentioned earlier is the Bible, actually, because while moving into the social impact field, I was getting more and more interested in how churches as an institution survived over 2,000 years. I have to say, I'm not religious, I'm not a Christian, but I found it amazing how they have delivered over thousands of years, bringing people together for serving communities. And I feel there's a lot to learn from that, and probably especially from the narrative they tell to inspire people to go beyond that.
Okay, great. Any book recommendations?
Sure,
from you guys?
I have two as well. And I'll pick up on the notion of the Bible. Of course, that's where the SDGs were really launched. Because what did Jesus said? He said, "Do unto others what how you want to be treated yourself," and that's sustainable development. But then I also want to, unless you haven't read it, go and get Factfulness of Rosling.
Hans Rosling, yeah.
This is an important book. And I think in the world of investments and innovation and information overflow, it's so crucial also in this area to get the facts right in order to be able to measure what you do and follow the progress.
Excellent. Malte,
Pressure's on.
book?
I've been trying to think as sophisticated as those two. I think one book that personally has impressed me a lot is, this is completely different genre, Tuesdays at Morris, if anybody knows that. It's basically a former student who becomes an author and hears about his professor who is having a a sickness and is about to die. So he would spend multiple Tuesdays with his former professor to learn about his life and his experiences. And I think one takeaway for me is, if you care about people genuinely and you just spend time, you do probably more than anything else through other means, by just giving money and kind of greenwashing yourself. That resonated with me.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.